sometimes people fall into a trap of pushing or looking or assuming that relationships should be a certain way when they're not. We can end up in situations trying to change ourselves or trying to change another person in a relationship in order to meet this need, this desire that we have for a deeper sense of connection. This is often what is behind an addiction to love. The question, though, is when is it healthy and when is it unhealthy? There's a really nice quote by Hermann Hesse. He says, "We must become so alone, so utterly alone that we withdraw into our innermost self. It is a way of bitter suffering, but then our solitude is overcome. We are no longer alone, for we find that our innermost self is the spirit." I've worked with patients in therapy and clients in my coaching practice many times who can experience this sense of loneliness, this sense of longing for another, but also this conflict that can exist within themselves. And so many times when I'll ask them about being by themselves, they will say they're used to being by themselves, that they have time by themselves, but they just want companionship. They want connection. And it's a tricky one because I understand this. It's not that those things are not true. It's not that those desires are not fair. My question, though, is how deep can you be with your feelings of loneliness? Because for a person who feels lonely, to accept that loneliness and to identify with it can be terrifying. So being with yourself in a deeper way, really being with yourself, accepting yourself fully, including your feeling of loneliness, including the truth that you don't want to feel lonely. These might be truths for you. Accepting it in fullness and accepting yourself is where that true connection begins. It's the relationship that you have to yourself. It doesn't end there because your relationship to yourself is never just to yourself. You're always in relationship to other people, and it's natural to have a balance. But let me ask you, if you fear being alone, what do you do with that? Do you distract yourself? Do you just sit with the fear? Because sometimes people will feel the fear, but not really feel it. It's like it's there in the background. They know it's there and they want it to change. But because they want it to change, they're not fully accepting themselves. They're recognizing the feeling, but they're not associated to it. And this is different from identifying with it. You identify with the feeling of loneliness. If you identify with it, then you might say, I am lonely, rather than the truth is that I feel a loneliness. It doesn't have to end there. I'm not suggesting to anyone that you just sit and stay with your loneliness for day upon day upon day. But how long might you be with yourself? What are the ways that you can be with yourself and accept yourself fully with all of your feelings? And it's uncomfortable. It will be uncomfortable. If you're an addict of love, you want the elation, you want the bliss, you want the ecstasy, you want the connection. And if you don't have it, then you feel the lack of those things. You have the capacity to connect in a deeper way with yourself and to feel those things. It does not mean that you have to spend the rest of your life in isolation. It does not mean that you have to be lonely or feel loneliness for the rest of your life, just that you accept it in the present and at the same time accept that you do not know what the future holds. And it is not about willing someone to suddenly show up and rescue you. It is just an acceptance of the unknown, of the mystery that is on the outside. Thank you for listening. Be well. Take care.